Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes soloing the Stalker. We're level 31, and I was trying to do Philippa Moreau, but she's got me doing the stupid Hunt 35 Cray and Cray's Folly mission, and I can't cancel it till tonight or tomorrow. So we're just going to start. I figured let me just try another contact with Neil Kendrick here. He gave me a mission that actually got me the temporary version of the Nemesis staff. So that's the one that I guess was originally in the game. You get 24 hours with it, and then it expires. This one never expires. Um, but now we're going to do the Freak Show War. Freak shows are tough. They're hard on your endurance. I just fought a bunch of freak shows. I fought at like an orange spawn of like 5 oranges and a red. Man, I needed to do this energy drain because it was just sort of brutal. Um, I've been watching some more YouTube videos on how-tos with City of Heroes and seeing how people do things somewhat differently. So I just want to make a comment. I'm not disagreeing that you can do it this way. It might actually save influence over what I've been doing. But I want to point out, I have 21 million influence. I don't need to save influence. We have tons. So I'm not worried about that. Um, so I saw a couple of things. One is somebody who was level 17 and they were showing how to get SOs on your level 17 character. Now you can do that. I mentioned doing that. Um, I fundamentally disagree with doing that. If you're trying to save influence, to me, that's not worth it. The DOs are much cheaper. The SOs and DOs are both going to expire in 5 levels, 6 levels. You're going to need to change them out at level 22, and so or 23. And so one of the things you can do is buy SOs at level 17. Heck, you could buy them at level 12. Heck, you could probably buy them at level 3. But as I mentioned, the leveling up goes so fast before level 20 that I don't think it's worth it. You spend almost as much to buy a group of level 20 SOs at level 17 as you'd do to buy a group of level 25 SOs at 22, just not as many because you don't have as many slots, but the individual ones cost almost as much. And they're only going to last you a few hours, right? How long did it take me to level up? Like 2-3 episodes, right, to get from level 17 to 20. And at that point, after 2021, they're yellow now, right? And they're not doing as much. These yellow ones are only giving me plus 30%, whereas a white one is plus 33 and a green one is plus 35, right? So, and the DOs are already, giving me plus 20% or whatever. Like, I know it's a little better, but I personally don't find it worthwhile to slot the SOs so early when they're just going to expire really fast. Once you get into the 20s, the leveling takes long enough that I feel like it's worth it to go ahead and slot SOs in there. Now, this same person, or was it the same person or a different person, was showing, like, at level 22, how to set up your IOs, your invention enhancements, right? The generic, what I call the generic IOs, right? The ones that aren't sets, these guys. And he did it at level 22. And he was slotting in level 20 and 25s. And I thought, why would you do that? The level 25s are worse than an SO. The level 25s are only plus 32%, I believe. And the level 20s are only plus 24%. So you definitely wouldn't want to do level 20s. It's barely better than a DO. I know they don't expire, but why would you want to permanently be on the equivalent of plus 3 DOs, right? I would rather have SOs than do that. The whole advantage to me of these guys is that they don't ever expire. The effectiveness does not vary as your security level changes. So I'm not going to slot them in until I know I'm going to keep them, because otherwise, if I'm going to have to rip them out, I may as well put an SO in there. So I don't know if he was going to recommend pulling out the level 25 SOs, or I'm sorry, trainer IOs when you get to level 35 or something like that. One of the things this person said was, okay, the level 25s are 32% buff on a damage, right? We just use that as an example because there are different percents for different types of enhancements. But the level The level 25s are plus 32. The level 30s are plus 34.8, and the level 35s are plus 36 point something. And so what he argued was, well, going from 20 to 25 goes from 24 to 32. That's a big jump, but going from 32 to 34.8 isn't a very big jump. Right here. Where is it? Here. But the thing is, 34.8 is better than a white SO. 32 is worse. 32 is like a yellow SO. Well, a little better than. But it's like a almost like a yellow SO. So by getting putting 32% in there, you're consigning yourself to, unless you change it, permanently having yellow SOs. I would not do that. Now, I will say, one of the things that this player does that's different from me is apparently they buy they don't buy the invention, they don't craft the inventions, the generic ones. They buy them from the auction house. And I thought, well, that's got to be pretty expensive. But it's not. I went and looked today on the auction house, and the level 25 damage invention enhancements were only about like 50 or 100 influence. So it would be a lot cheaper to do that, I guess, and then change them out rather than doing the SOs like I do. But you're still consigning yourself to worse than white SOs. The reason I do level 30 and above is because then when I slot them in, they're better than a white SO. They're basically the equivalent of +1 SOs, and then they're basically as good as it's going to get. And unless you put sets in, you're kind of not going to be able to beat that, right? You could get level 35s, and I prefer them if I can, but at least they're better than an SO. So my thing is always, isn't like what's the raw percent, but is it better than I could get if I just use a single origin? If it's not, I'm using single origins, right? Even if they cost a little more, because I want the best percentage buff for each enhancement, right? So again, this is superior to this. It's about equivalent to this, right? 35, 34.8. So it's equivalent to a +1 single origin, a green single origin. That's what I want. I want my character to be equivalent to having all green SOs, because I know that with all green SOs, I can do any content I want in the game, usually at +2 or +3. Easily at +2, maybe +3 requires some sets, but I can certainly do +2 content no problem with green SOs because I've done it many times, right before they even had inventions and stuff like that. Right, you couldn't set the game on +3, but you could set the game on +2, and you would fight some +3s in those missions, and I never had trouble with that. With my like martial arts scrapper and my tanker and stuff like that. Well, tanker, I used to actually set it on +1, but the equivalent of 2 or 3 characters, because the tanker had invincibility, which benefited from having her being surrounded by a lot of guys. So it was my way of getting that invincibility to trigger. Anyway, that's just different ways to slot it. My guess is that in raw influence, my way is more expensive than his way, but I think in character effectiveness, my way is probably better. At least until you start getting sets. Right? Once we hit the level 30 generic IOs, then it's probably equivalent, and if he changes them out, then it would be equivalent once you hit level 30. But I suspect in the 20s, on the levels when I'm on green and white SOs, my character is more effective than it would be using his strategy, and then when I have yellow SOs, it's about the same, or maybe slightly worse. But my feeling has always been, since the trainers don't expire, I'm not going to slot them in until they're good enough that I could leave them there forever. This character never has to change the level 30 trainers. I probably will when the time comes to get 40s and I have tons of influence. But mostly what happens is I leave these on. These are going to stay here until there's a set on this power, probably. Now in terms of buying versus crafting, crafting is more expensive apparently than buying. I don't know why. Like, to me, I don't understand why anyone, unless they're trying to get the sales badge, why anyone would put an enhancement that it costs you 30 or 40,000 to craft up for sale for 55. I don't know. That somebody's going to have to explain to me, because that doesn't make any sense from the seller's perspective. From the buyer's perspective, I can see buying it. But from the seller's perspective, again, unless you're trying to get the badge for selling 1,000 items or whatever it is on the auction house, I can't see why you would do it. The other thing I would say is it's not a guarantee, right? Like, you're going to have to check the servers. You know, I think it's a cross-server auction house, so all the servers share the same auction house. So you're going to have to check the auction house before you decide to do this, and make sure that the stuff is still for sale at that price. So we'll check it when we leave the mission, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. So this is just an example of different strategies of how to do things. And if you were wondering, just watching me, like, why would somebody ask my strategy? Because I kind of do the same thing every time. Well, that's why, because maybe that person does... oh, we missed somebody back here. Maybe that person does have... has used these other strategies in the past, so I don't really know. But I pretty much only do these. And you can see the level 35, right? So this is already, we can't use it yet. But this gives us now a 36.7% buff, which is like a plus 2 or 3 green SO. Right? And the level... Where's this guy? I don't know. Is he in the wall or something? We might be bugged. I don't know. If we are, I'll try going out and coming in, but we'll see. Because it's defeat all and there's somebody here. But typically when you see question, 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 it's some sort of a bug. Because if it's that guy, you have his name, right? So I don't know. And then the reds disappeared. Why? Why did they vanish now all of a sudden? Right? They should have stayed up. So we're bugged somehow. Now I don't know whether that's going to mean anything. Is this the one where we meet the Zigzag Man? Oh, we've completed the mission. Well, where are the other guys? Did they despawn? No, they didn't despawn. They're right here. That's weird. Well, we'll take them out. It's XP and they're bad guys, so they need to go. Prison time, guys. Say hi to the Zig for me. Alright. So let's take a look. And you can see what I was talking about. Auction house. Why am I in caps lock? Take that off. So we go enhancements. Crafted enhancements, other, damage. Right, so level 20, so here we go. Level 10's 11.7%. Then it jumps up 8 to 19%. This is equivalent to a DO. Right, I don't put them in because I don't want to keep my character permanently on a DO, and why would I want to put in a thing that doesn't change as security level changes unless I want to keep it. 20 gives you plus 25%, then this is plus 32, 34, 36, 38, and at 50, you're at plus 42%. Now, these guys are probably overkill, because if you're going to have triples, you can't go over 100. But if you think about it, you're at plus like 99% with 3 of, say, these. Right? With 2 of these, you'd be at plus 84%. You might say, I'll take that, do 2 damage, and then put a different enhancer on to change how you're going to do the enhancing. But I figure these are better than an SO. This is where I start. If you want to buy 25s, the way this person suggested, there are 214 on sale for 55 influence each. Again, I don't know why you would put them up for 55 when it costs several thousand to craft them, but then the 30s... Even these guys, there are 148 for sale. There are 10 bidding. Now notice though, there are 10 bidding, and the most recent sale, one of them cost 50,000. So people were buying them for 100, Somebody paid 50,000. There's no way I would pay that for one of these when you can just craft them. But there are these lower prices. So what this means is some of them were up for low, and now all the ones that are up for 55 and 100, those are gone. So now you're going to have to bid higher, right? Now 50,000, somebody probably got frustrated, said I really want this one, and just put in a really high price. So my guess is most of these are on sale for in between 50,000 and 100, but who knows? There might be 5,000, might be 10,000, right? Some of these are going for a lot, and some are going for a little. As you can see, as you go up, they're very expensive. I don't know why these are so cheap. Unless people are waiting until level 25 to do the tutorial and then throwing these on the auction house. I don't know why those are so cheap. And then these are really expensive. Why? So why are these 10,000? When you can buy DOs for cheaper than that, I don't know. So it's a potentially viable strategy if the market sustains it. I don't know how long term it is, or whether the market's only like that sometimes, right? You have to get lucky with it. I don't know. My way of doing it doesn't really require a lot of working on the market. It mostly is just crafting our own recipes and using SOs in between. And I don't know whether the market's going to be cheaper or more expensive from day to day, but I know exactly how much an SO costs, and I know how much it costs to put in a full level worth of SOs, and I know how much it costs to do that at level 32, level 47, 37, level 42, and 47, and I need about 10 to 12 million influence total to do that. So since I already have 21 million, I don't have to worry about influence. And so I can just do whatever I want, right? The worst that's going to happen, is that I'll have SOs to level 50, and I've done that before, no big deal. I don't think we have anything to sell, right? Because this we can craft. We can't use it yet, but we can craft it. We'll be able to use it at level 32. So what's happening now is the freak shows that we're defeating that are +2 to us are 33, and they may drop 35s because they're closer to 35 than to 30, right? So then as they get closer, they start dropping the level of enhancements that they're closest to. If it's SOs or DOs, or used to be trainers, they drop their level, so you get a level 33 SO. But if it's the invention recipes, they can't drop 33s, so they can only drop 30s and 35s. I think they can for the sets. I think those can have weird numbers, but the generic ones can only be level 30 or 35 or 40 every 5 levels. They just don't have those recipes just don't exist in the intermediate levels. Got you before you dulled pain, buddy. But not him. Now, one thing I'll say is, if I bought the enhancements, we could have extra damage on these two guys, right? But we'll have extra damage on them at a minimum at level 32 anyway. I can wait half a level. It's not a big deal. We've lived without it all this time. I can live without it a little longer. Cray, what are you guys doing here? I haven't fought many Cray. Fought a couple Nemesis. One of the things I'm going to have to remember to do with Nemesis is not start assassinating the lieutenants, because they do buff their fellow minions, anybody around them, when they go down. I can't remember the name of it, but it's the equivalent of fortitude, but it only happens when you die, when you faceplant. It's called retribution or something. It's basically like at your dying breath is to inspire your comrades. We have to meet Joe Baker. All right, so I think I actually might want to let's stop. Let's stalk the mission. Let's find Joe Baker. My guess is he's going to be somewhere in the back. because they usually put the hostages in the back, but not always. Oh, we gotta turn off super jump. So let's just see if we can. Well, he's not here. This is the second warehouse today that I've done on this floor plan. I couldn't find who I was looking for on that other floor plan either, and just started defeating everybody, and at some point I got a mission complete, even though I didn't think I found the guy that I was looking for. What's this map look like here? Let's zoom out. Well, where's Joe Baker? Is he, like, he's not a boss, is he? Well, I don't know. I guess we'll just defeat everybody. And so it reminds me of the one guy, I think I've told this story, we were talking about the defeat all missions, where you have to defeat everybody. And I don't know if there's another name for it, map clearing. But he said, when I'm playing my brute, every mission is defeat all, because for a brute, you want to be fighting constantly to keep up your fury. Of course I missed him, because you always miss runners. Where'd he go? Is he kidding me, this guy? Where did he go? I can't defeat all until I get you, buddy. Come on. Okay. Now we'll go back into hide. Oh, is this a hostage over here? Yeah, here we go. So there's Joe Baker. Alright, so we want to defeat everybody but those guys, in case there's an ambush or something. So the next jump in effectiveness you'll see for this character will be at level 32, where we will get a new power, probably the Disorient. Like, I want to get Midnight Grasp, but we can't really... We can't slot it when we have to slot all this other stuff too, and we really don't need another straight attack just yet. So we'll probably get the AoE Disorient, which I probably won't need to enhance a lot, because you can enhance and disorient duration, but not disorient probability, which would be what I would rather enhance, but you can't do that. So someday I may want to increase the disorient duration, but that's not going to be a priority. So I feel like what I may do, perhaps, is take... Well, the other thing I could do is take Touch of Fear, but see, I think that's single target. We do need some kind of crowd control for the runners. On the other hand, if Touch of Fear and Disorient are both either single target or PB I don't know how much it's going to help, because the runners will be out of range. I don't know. We'll have to think about it. And my normal thing to do would be to start with the Disorient. But you're not going to do that as an Assassin Striker, right? As a Stalker. You're going to do Assassin Strike first. Got it? Okay, so mission complete. So the Freak Show are having a fight with two different gangs. Is this where you meet Drek? I can't remember. And... Yep, the Freak Show are working with the Cray. Schwarzwald's notes the Cray-sponsored Creek Show attack will be against a company called Unimax Com. Let's protect them. So what's happening is, so part of what's going on is the Freak Show are being hired by the Cray organization to go after their competitors. So Cray Comp, the Cray Corporation, they do a lot. There's science and everything, but they also have computers, right? There's Cray, like Cray OS essentially, and Cray computers, and so they're kind of set up as a little cartoon villain version of Microsoft. They're, you know, actually, what are you doing running around? They're actually pretty accurate to Microsoft. um, no, I'm kidding. Microsoft doesn't have actual supervillains working for them, just villains. Um, anyway, Cray is like they put. I think at one point in one of the story arcs, when you go up against the Cray, they're putting out an operating system that's going to like spy on everybody. It's so sort of eerily predictive of what actually starts happening with some of these operating systems, particularly Microsoft. It may have taken Microsoft till Windows 11 to do what Cray was trying to do in the fictional universe of COH, but dang, you know, some of these corporations, it's really funny. Like you've got a PR problem if people are equating your company to actual cartoon villains. I remember saying this about, I don't want to get too into Dungeons and Dragons, but D&D and the way they handled things like the OGL scandal, which I talked about, and you guys can look that up online. But there were memes of them where, because they changed the open gaming license that they said they would never change, right? They changed it to their own benefit, of course, and basically for the purposes of making themselves rich, right? Being greedy. And there was a meme of like Darth Vader talking to Lando Calrissian in The Empire Strikes Back, with Darth Vader labeled as Wizards of the Coast, right? And Lando labeled as gamers, and Vader saying, "I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further." Like, you've lost the PR battle when you are being memed as Darth Vader. There was another meme of them as Palpatine, right? I don't know, going power, unlimited power. When you're being memed as Darth Vader and the Emperor from Star Wars, that's not good for your company. And then there was another one where somebody took the Avengers, the ending of the Avengers, where they're all fighting Thanos, and labeled all the Avengers as the various YouTubers and internet people who fought to get the OGL policy reverted, and Hasbro was labeled as Thanos, right? And all the people who were arguing against them were labeled as the Avengers. Like, you have a PR problem when you're being memed as Thanos, Darth Vader, or the Emperor. And I think there was one with them as Sauron too, right? One OGL to rule them all. Like, and I think there was one of them as Saruman as well. Like, these are the most evil people in movies, and your company is being equated to that. You have a PR problem. And those of us who play City of Heroes, at least, we think of Cray as Microsoft. And so, yeah, that doesn't speak well for Microsoft, because these are literally are cartoon villains from a superhero story. And we're saying, these guys remind us of your company. That's bad. You shouldn't you shouldn't be acting like that as a company. Unfortunately, too many companies do. And I'm not anti-capitalist or anything like that, but there are a lot of companies that don't value their customers and don't care about them. One of the reasons that City of Heroes actually did so well for as long as they did, I don't think NCSoft ever gave a darn about anybody, but Cryptic Studios and later Paragon Studios actually did. They seemed to really enjoy the game they were making. They played their own game. We knew that. Like, there were people who played with Warwitch. There were people who played with Castle, like on the test server and stuff. They played their own game. They enjoyed their own game. They enjoyed their customer base. They, even Statesman, there were things I didn't like about him, but he always came on the forum and engaged with us and seemed like he liked what he was doing. And, they always were trying to please the players, right? There were arguments and we disagreed about philosophy and stuff, but in the end, they were always trying to do things that players liked. They always were making quality of life improvements to the game. They listened to the customers and tried to do things that we liked. right? The whole idea of glowies making sound, well, that was feedback, right? Because we had trouble finding them. They weren't in the places that the devs put them in. They thought would be obvious, and maybe they weren't obvious to us. So they gave us a sound, and then the sound was really high pitched at one point. They changed it to a lower pitch. I guess they got some feedback that it was too hard to hear, or it was bothering people's ears, or whatever. Um, the red triangles of the enemies when you're in a defeat all mission, again, there to help you find the patrols, because sometimes they wander around and you miss them. Somebody pointed that out in one of my earlier videos. They were like, in the comments, yeah, that you missed the patrol. They were walking up the ramp behind you. Like, yeah, I don't always notice that stuff because I'm busy talking and, stalking and scrapper locking. The temporary movement powers that you get at the beginning of your character, right, when you're level 1, also based on player feedback. So there are tons and tons of things that they changed in this game because we said we'd like this better, and they said, okay, we'll try it. And they weren't afraid to try it. They were willing to do that. There were some things that Statesman really had a bug up his butt about, like there shall not be tank mages, and some things couldn't change until he left and Positron took over. But even there, I mean, there were just some things he didn't like, but other stuff he was willing to take feedback from the players. And I've told you guys before about the mission that I played with my friends that I said, I didn't feel like a tank or whatever, and he went in and replayed that mission. He asked me which one it was, which contact gave it to me, etc. Asked for the makeup of my group, and then he went in and played it with the other devs, and they decided it played okay. And I didn't like that decision, didn't agree with it, but I do respect the fact that they listened to what players were saying, took that into account, and did their best to test what we were saying and see if we might be right. They gave it the possibility that we might be right. Look at this. You just cannot hit runners. So annoying. I think they even did something about that. Right? The runners on the street, I think they leashed them to their spawn point more tightly. So I don't know what the numbers were, but let's say the runner originally could go up to 150 feet from their spawn point, and it was driving people on the streets crazy because they were street hunting, and the guy would run away and they couldn't find him and stuff. And if you were trying to rescue 5 people, there was a mission where you had to rescue 5 or 10 like mugging victims, and if you tried to do that and they ran away, you wouldn't get credit for it, which was really annoying. And so what they did was they shortened the leash. Instead of 150 feet, it was 75. I don't remember the numbers, but they shortened the leash so that they wouldn't run further. They wouldn't run as far, and that made it a little easier. Right? That was done fairly early. Like Statesman was still a developer at that point, so yeah. I mean, they were always very responsive. And again, I was never a huge fan of NCSoft itself, but I always thought Paragon Studios, Cryptic, those guys were very responsive to their players, and they really wanted to make a good game for us. They didn't just want to make a buck. I know they were trying to make money, but they also took great pride in their game, and they really wanted to make a good game, and they did make a good game. Another runner, another miss, right? Oh no, that one hit. Okay. Finally. Okay, that takes care of him. And then, let's see, placate, since there are 2 of them, and we'll just assassinate this guy. And then finish this guy off. Things like alignment missions and being able to change from villain to hero. Again, that was something that was suggested originally by the player base. And the developer said, we'll try to figure out how to do it. And then they figured it out and said, okay, we'll do it now. And it's part of the game. How did you see me? Oh, I must have not been under hide yet. I always start walking forward just like a second too early. I have a little bit of a timer in my head, but it's not quite right. So we're going to do this story arc, then we're going to do Philippa Moreau. I think she's... Is she Richter or is she Cray? I can't remember. This thing, speaking of Star Wars, always reminds me of The Empire Strikes Back and that little shaft that Luke walked through. Now there's... That waypoint is for another level. That's the other elevator we haven't been on. So, we still have a couple more guys to save. I walked right past those guys. That's a danger as a stalker. That's how you miss people, right? Because as a scrapper, I would have aggroed those guys. But as a stalker, you walk right past them, don't even see them. And this is a defeat all mission, so we have to get these guys. The other good thing about City of Heroes, if we going back to like this other guy who, the two guys I was watching, I don't know if it was the same guy or two different guys, I can't remember, where they were putting like SOs at level 17 and starting to put level 20 and 25 inventions at when they were level 22, and I don't do that, right? I do SOs. That's the great thing about City of Heroes, is you can do it either way. It's fine. Do whatever you want. And what? Did I hit and not do damage, or did I miss? I guess I missed. You can do it however you want, right? You can enhance your characters however you want. You can take whichever powers in the power set you want. I mean, like, a lot of people take the boxing pool. A lot of people in the boxing pool take tough and weave. Or the fighting pool, I guess. They take boxing, tough, and weave. It used to be, I don't know what you have to do now. It used to be you had to take boxing or, I don't remember the other one, in order to get the tough and weave powers. Tough gives you resistance, weave gives you defense, and people would run those two toggles and stack, right? It would stack the defenses and stack the resistances. I've never done that. That was considered must-have, especially for super reflex, because tough was the only resistance you were going to get, and you had to multi-slot it and put those enhancers on it. I never did it. And there were people who would not consider, like I had people on my super group, blasters, tankers, scrappers. Well, very few people play tankers or scrappers. Blasters, defenders, controllers, every one of them took boxing, tough, and weave. And slotted them heavily. Well, not boxing, but slotted tough and weave heavily. They wouldn't hear of such a thing as not taking tough and weave. And there were people on the forums back in the day when I was a scrapper and said I didn't do that, who said, I would never team with you, you're going to be too weak. I'm like, I don't know, I'm fighting red and purple cons with no problem. But what's great about City of Heroes, well, people who won't team with you if you don't follow their build philosophy isn't so great. But what's great about the game City of Heroes is even back then, there was enough flexibility, you could kind of do whatever you wanted. And there isn't a right answer. That's the big thing that I argue with people, used to argue with people about, is not that their way was wrong, but it's not the only way, right? There isn't a right answer. And I try to say that all the time. This is how I do it. I don't like to do X and I prefer to do Y. Doesn't make it right, doesn't make it the best way, might be a stupid way if your goal is something else, right? So if your goal is to save influence, right, doing the SOs and stuff the way I do it might not be great. If your goal is to, try to max out the percentages on your character, maybe my way is better. I'm not really trying to max out. I just don't like being on things that are weaker than a +0 SO. So that's why I don't do the level 25s. But, I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? It's completely viable, obviously, to do it. Wait a minute. Is there nothing on this level? It's completely viable to do it however you want. Okay, what's going on here? This is literally an empty level with no rooms? That's really weird. And no enemies? There was just one guy, right? Two guys. There's no enemies. This room is empty. These are just empty hallways. Oh, right there. Yep. Okay, that's a little more normal. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen one except an elevator level that's just hallways. So yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of different ways that you can play. There's all sorts of different ways you can build. And that's why in the previous episode when somebody was asking me, like, what would you do, like, which of these power sets do you think would work best as a Stalker? I mean, like, literally, I don't know. Because it's up to you and what your playstyle is like and what you enjoy. I had played Dark Melee Brute, so I was pretty sure, and Energy Aura before, so I was pretty sure I'd like Dark Melee for a Stalker. And I knew I'd like Energy Aura. Because it's a lot like Super Reflexes, and I love Super Reflexes. So, I was pretty confident, but I have to say, I can't think of a power set that I've ever played that I've hated. I've liked some better than others. But I can't think of a power set that I've ever played that I didn't like. And I was like, I'm sorry I took that character, and I'm sorry I took that power set. There are archetypes I preferred and not preferred. Like, not a huge fan of blasters and corruptors and defenders, really. But I can't think of any power sets that I've taken where I've been like, I'm sorry, this power set stinks, I don't like it. They pretty much all have something cool to recommend them. And nearly everyone has good effects and animations. I can't think of power sets with bad effects and animations. So there's pretty much always one that I'm going to enjoy the visuals and the sounds. The sounds are always good. So I don't know. I mean, like, you can kind of do whatever you want. So, like, I can tell you what I do and why I do it, and you might go, "Oh, okay, that sounds reasonable. That makes sense, and I'm going to try it." But doesn't mean what works for me is going to work for you, and you really have to try to find what's your comfort zone and do that. It sort of reminds me of writing. I've been doing a lot of fiction writing. I've finished one book a while ago, and I started writing another one. I'm about 100, 105 handwritten pages into it at this point. Sort of a Lovecraftian horror. The first one was like a weird Western because of playing Deadlands. I have no idea if I'll ever publish them. In fact, I mentioned that I was doing this to one of my friends, and she's like, "Can we read it?" And I was like, "I don't know if it's a fit state for somebody to read it right now. I still have a lot of revision to do." She's like, "Okay, well, when you get done, we want to read." I'm like, "I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to feel like it's good enough to show it to other people. But that's not why I'm writing it. I'm writing it for my own fun, my own pleasure, and it's good enough to show it to me. And when I write it, I kind of feel like I'm reading the novel, right? I'm finding out what happens as I write, which is why I've actually shifted. The first one I plotted very vaguely, just bullet points, and then wrote the story. This one that I'm doing now, I don't know where it's going. I sit down to write because I'm like, gee, I want to find out what happens next. Ah, this is the lead negotiators one. Okay. Ah, boy. All right, well, I can't autocomplete this, so let's wander around and see if we can find them, but my guess is we probably can't. There was one time when I found them right over here, and it was like right down here, I think, and I was like, are you kidding me? They were at the beginning, and I'm pretty sure they weren't. I'm pretty sure that in this mission, but you have to watch here because they do talk. And then you know they have spawned. And I always look for the talk, and then I try to spin around and see where the word balloons are. But so sometimes they're back here, but no. And then sometimes, a lot of times, they're over here. So let's keep an eye on our NPC spam. And see if we see any words. Sometimes they're back in this spot. But in the past, when I've tried to shortcut it, I've never been able to find them like that. So I guess we're just going to just defeat all. Just going to keep going. Of course, our first attack is a miss, because of course we would roll a 99, which is like the highest roll you can possibly make. So anyway, writing. There's tons of writing advice on the internet, and the one writer who does post some writing advice, sort of ironically, but she was saying, you can listen to it if you want, but the thing is that what works for Stephen King, I've read his book on writing, what works for Stephen King might not work for you. What works for Brandon Sanderson, who's got whole semesters of his writing class posted to the internet, you can watch them, they're very interesting, but what works for him might not work for you. Right? Like one of the things that works for him, look at all this missing! One of the things that works for him is to write at like the wee hours of the morning. Wouldn't work for me, even if I didn't have a job. Right? So it all depends on what works for you. And what she said is you got to find out your own way of doing it. And I can't remember who it was. It was somebody else who was saying, I think it was somebody who said he had talked to a bunch of different writers and asked them, like, he read a bunch of, or he watched a bunch of interviews, I think, of writers talking about how they do their writing process. And he said it's patently obvious from the way they talk and how they describe it that they literally don't know how they do what they do. Right? What they're saying, you cannot follow their advice and actually have it happen like the way they do, because they literally don't know where they get their ideas. They cannot explain it. Right? And if you read Stephen King's book on writing, like pretty much what he says is he just sits down to write and the story comes to him. And if you sit down to write, the story will come to you too, but it might not, because everybody's different. Right? He was talking about how, and I saw him in an interview one time, and he was talking about how, I don't remember which writer, Truman Capote or somebody, said they wrote the last page and then went back and started the novel, and he made this like gagging motion, like he was sticking his finger down his throat, like, that's terrible. Stephen King doesn't like to know the ending of the story. It spoils the story. It makes it not be fun for him. Right? But for other writers, they need to. I remember Isaac Asimov saying that he always writes, he used to write the last chapter first. And then, now that I know where the book is going, I can go back to the beginning and write the book that way. So he would write the last chapter and then start in the first chapter and write up to that. And I thought, I can't imagine doing that. I don't think that would work for me. I've never actually tried it, but I don't know that would work for me. And I think it would lead to a lot of plot contrivance and stuff where I'm trying to force the story to go where I quote-unquote know it's supposed to end up. But for Asimov, it worked great. I mean, he wrote dozens of stories and was a best-selling science fiction author for years. But what worked for him may not work for you. Might not work for me. right? And the same thing is true in City of Heroes. Just because this works for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And I've seen it. I think I've talked about this before. Like, or I'm watching a Let's Play of somebody, and they're doing really well in a game, and I try to replicate what they did, and I can't because I'm not them. If it's a video game that requires some reflexes, I don't have their reflexes. Maybe. Even if it's like more of like a turn-based strategy game. I was watching somebody, so I'm playing Lock and Load. I've talked about this. It's a tactical, like a Hex Encounters war game simulator based on the board game Lock and Load. I will warn, it's in early access. It's been in early access for years, and it doesn't look like it's ever going to come out of early access. So far, I haven't encountered any game-breaking bugs. But a couple of the missions, one of the missions in particular, is brutally hard that comes with the base game. Just brutal. I've never even come close to be able to solve it. Right? And so there's this one guy who actually has a video of himself doing it, and he said, I don't know if we're going to win this, because he said, I've tried this mission like 8 times. This is my 8th or 9th time doing it. He said, I've never been able to succeed at it. He did succeed. At the very end, you have 8 turns. At the very end of turn 8, he did manage to succeed. But if you watch what happened, he got really lucky with some of his rolls. Right? So one of the things that happens in the game is you have initiative, and whoever has initiative obviously goes first. And there were 2 turns where he said, we really need initiative here or we're not going to be able to survive, and he got initiative both times. Well, it's 50-50, right? If he had lost initiative either of those times, he would not have survived. And he even said that, oh man, if we hadn't gotten initiative here, they would have had us dead to rights. But because I have initiative, I can do this with my guys and they'll survive, right? And I know with me, the one time I played it, the enemy got the initiative every single time. This is the US against the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese and from the Vietnam War, and it's just like you're attacking a little village and trying to find a cache of weapons. And what he was saying, and I saw this, like somebody actually had a forum post about this on Reddit, or a Reddit post or something, about the board game, that you can fairly easily win if you're playing the Vietnamese side, but if you're playing the American side, it's almost impossible. And these are very experienced gamers who are playing this thing. But so I watched this one guy, and yeah, he won, but I don't know if I could win doing it the way he did, because he got really lucky. Right? There's a sniper hiding in a random spot, and he got really lucky that something happened and the sniper got shaken. And when they're shaken, it's similar to Savage Worlds. You can't do anything until you unshake, and the sniper never unshook, I think. If that sniper had unshaken, he would have been, his guys would have been dead, right? So it was all luck. I can't replicate his die rolls. Even if I try to replicate his tactics, and I might lose anyway, right? And so, and also there's no guarantee that I'm going to enjoy playing the game the way he did, right? You could be cautious, or you could be very aggressive in a tactical game like that. And if I prefer playing aggressively and he's playing very cautiously, yeah, you might be able to win like that, but I would say it's not any fun, right? Just like with my Stalker, there are ways that I could play with this character, like doing the architect and farming. I could do that, but what do I always say? It wouldn't be any fun. I don't enjoy that. I prefer running missions and stuff. And I actually really enjoy narrating stuff with you guys. It's fun. Not everybody would want to play like this. A lot of people wouldn't want to narrate. They might say, "Oh, how can you stand that?" And then you've got people watching your videos and second guessing how you're playing the game. Who would want that? I just want to play in peace. A lot of people would say that. But I actually kind of enjoy it. Right? So, you see me? Oh, yeah, I figured. So everybody has their own sort of preferred way of doing things, and the way somebody else does it might not be your taste. Just like with food, right? I might cook something that I love and you hate that. All right, maybe you don't like chicken and I like chicken, or maybe you don't like beef and I like beef, or maybe you don't like stews and things that are more soup-like, and I love stew. I actually do love stews. When I was a kid, I didn't like stew. I don't know why. My mom used to make this like chicken and dumpling stew that, as a late teenager and as an adult, I couldn't get enough of. I remember her saying, "You used to hate this thing." Like, I don't know why I hated it. It's delicious. And especially like this time of year when it's cold out and you get that nice, warm, soothing broth and the warm chicken and vegetables and stuff into your stomach, and it's really. Did we ever get these guys talking? No, they haven't yet. Huh. Um, it's really like what, comfort food, if you want to call it that, right? That's always enjoyable to me, right? But some people might not like chicken. They might not like dumplings. They might not like food. Might not like soups. And everybody has their own preferences. I keep coming to these guys too early. Right? I keep not waiting for the hide to engage. Right? Instead of I start now instead of now, right? Just the little timer in my head is not set right. I still think the Sonic is a really cool sound. By the way, I saw somebody do a build of, I can't remember what the primary was, but the secondary for a Dominator was martial arts. I was like, how did I miss that? I didn't realize you could do martial arts as a Dominator secondary. That sounds awesome. I might have to try that at some point. I love martial arts. So this is going to get progressively harder as the sun goes down. I might pause this video in the dark and just let the game run and wait until it gets light out, if I can't find these guys. Just because it'll be easier to find them in the light, obviously. Still no word from the negotiators. No dialogue. So I'm hoping that defeating enough of these guys will make them spawn. See, I got too close again before hiding. You'd think after 31 levels I would. So part of the problem is indoors, usually by the time I wind my way around the corridor, I've hidden again. But out here, there's no, you're not sort of dodging around the corners. And so you find the next guy and you figure, okay, I can just walk up to him. Ah, there they are. Freak Show Negotiator. So now I don't know where they are, but they have spawned now, I guess. I thought they used to come at the beginning. Right? I feel like I used to see their word balloons at the beginning. So I didn't see the word balloons. I don't know where they are. I wish that meant that we're close to them physically. Right? They must be around here, but I don't think so. Because I think, whoops, I think they can be anywhere in the zone and you'll still get the... So that makes it seem like it was triggered by defeating enough guys. If you want, I won't do this myself, but if you want and you're interested in how many guys have to be defeated before it counts, if that's even a thing, You can go back and count how many guys I defeated in here, and it'll let you know. Now, I will say I don't tend to like these outdoor missions, defeat alls, and I don't like the ones where you have to hunt for a needle in a haystack outdoors. But a lot of players like these because you get tons of XP. Look at how much our XP bar has gone up, right? Just because there's so many guys in a concentrated area, and you're just fighting constantly. Let's see if we can find these guys. So I'm gonna head back to the entrance. Just gonna look around. So just in case, I want to go back to this island in the back here, because I don't want to have to come back. We've already cleaned out over here, so if they're here, they should show up as soon as I tab target. So we're going to come back over here. We're going to tab this. We'll do the other side on the way back, and then we're going to come over here and tab target this here, because we know this was cleaned out. So we're just going to check it and see if they're back here. I don't see them though. Right, so they do not appear to be on this island. I'm going all the way around it. Hard to do in the dark, but I think we've seen everything. And I don't see anybody there. And then the backside here. Oh, okay, there's still guys. Yep, see? We were down here. I think they just spawned. Unless I missed this one. Don't know. Might have to go back and rewatch this video after all. Alright, so this takes these guys out. We're also going to have to defeat these three. Probably, but that should be it. It's kind of disappointing that these guys are just lieutenants. Mission complete. Alright, let's head out. So that one wasn't too bad. But it wasn't too bad because I knew to go back and check. Right? Because I've had this happen before where I thought I was there. I thought I had, checked and went back to the place and they had respawned back there. Okay, we're going to take this mission, but... it is the Zigzag Man. Okay, we're going to take this mission, but we're not going to do it. Because this is over an hour. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please let me know if you have any questions about slotting enhancements or any of that, why I do what I do. I think I've explained it enough, but I can explain more if I need to. If you have any other comments about what your preferences are, feel free to put your preferences in the comments. We have a pretty good audience. You guys don't seem to flame each other or anything. And I don't flame you guys, and you guys don't flame me. So feel free to go ahead and put your comments down there, what your preferences are. No judgment, right? Do whatever you enjoy, and I will do the same. Until next time, I am Scarperlock, and this has been City of Heroes, soloing the Stalker.